Hi everyone, welcome to Cooking Matters for Parents. My name is Maria. I'm the Cooking Matters coordinator at the New Hampshire Food Bank. And today we are going to be making black bean and vegetable quesadillas. This is one of our favorite recipes that we do in our classes, so we're really excited to share it with you today. All right, so let's get going. So to start out, you'll notice I have all my ingredients laid out in front of me. This is something in the culinary world that we call mise en place. It's a French term that means everything in its place, and it literally just means having all your ingredients out. This can be a really helpful practice to start doing at home. It will help make your cooking a little bit smoother. You're not running, getting stuff out of cabinets while stuff's on the stove. You're not realizing that you have a missing ingredient halfway through. So it's a great practice to practice. And you'll notice my hair is up and I already washed my hands. Those are the first two things you're gonna also wanna do. So if you haven't done that, go do it. And then we are gonna start by putting a little bit of oil in our pan and letting it heat up. So we'll just do a bit. And I'm just gonna keep it on low for now. So we're gonna start with chopping our onion. You'll notice, actually I don't know if you can see, but on my cutting board, my knife is facing away from you. If you're not using your knife, make sure that it's facing away from you, you know where it is. And the next thing that we wanna practice with our knife skills is doing what we call the bear claw. So if you kind of, you can see, but I'm, doing this kind of bear claw motion, and I'm just making sure my fingertips are tucked in. And this is important when you're holding your fruit or vegetable or whatever you're cutting, so that your fingertips are tucked in so you won't cut them. And this is really important. And any chef or culinary person will tell you to keep those fingers tucked in. So next, you'll notice that our onion rolls around, right? We don't have a lot of control over it. So the first thing we want to do is make sure we create a flat surface on anything we're cutting. So with this onion, I'm going to take my knife. I have a nice firm grip on it, and I'm gonna carefully, hold it in place, keep my fingers out from the knife, and just gently do a nice cut down the middle. Beautiful. All right, and the way we cut our onions in Cooking Matters is we'll cut off this little part, but we're gonna leave the root side intact of our onion. All right. And then I usually just do a cut down the middle and just take our skins off. Beautiful. All right, so we're gonna make sure we have our bear claw, but we are gonna do cuts right down the middle of the onion, but not going through the root. So we're gonna keep that root down here intact. So basically just cutting long strips of our onion, but not going all the way through. I'm gonna do that with my other half, and I will show you a nice fun trick. All right, so now that we have that done, we're just gonna go across and chop down the other way of our onion. And this is a super easy way to cut an onion because all the pieces are intact. So you're just doing that one cut, getting all the way through. It is a super duper easy way. And then I'm all done. How fast was that? So we'll do our other side. I'm keeping my fingertips tucked in my bear claw. Beautiful. I love that method of cutting an onion. It's super duper fast. All right, so I'm just gonna put my onion into my warm pan on the stove, and we'll let that start getting brown. Nice. I'm going to turn it up to about medium heat. And next we are gonna get our zucchini ready. So that's gonna be the bulk of our quesadilla filling today. So I already grated about 1.5 zucchini just to get us going here. So I would recommend, grating the zucchini if you have a grater. This can be a really fun task for kids in the kitchen, right? If your kids are able to do some of the grating, that could be super helpful. And in Cooking Matters, you'll notice we have grated vegetables in a lot of our recipes, and that's because it's a really great way to kind of make them a little bit more appealing to kids, right? They're the little pieces, maybe they don't notice them as much. That's why we love that. And if you don't have a grater or you don't want to grate the zucchini, you can cut it into small pieces. So with the remainder of my zucchini, I could just cut off the end. I could make sure that I'm getting my flat surface at first, just cut down the middle, and I could just cut some nice little slivers if I didn't mind having, some chunks in my quesadilla. But I personally like the shredded zucchini, so I'm going to go ahead and shred the rest of my zucchini. And like I said, this is something kids could do, but I would definitely encourage, if you're trying to get your kids a little bit more involved in the kitchen, or just if you're trying to get them to eat more of the foods that you cook, try to work with your kids to figure out a couple just small kitchen tasks that they could do that you could designate their tasks. So it could be measuring, it could be mixing, it could be even just setting the table. All right, I think that is enough. Beautiful. All right, I'm gonna let my onions saute for a couple more minutes just until they're starting to get soft. And in the meantime, I'm gonna grate some zucchini. I'll be back in a sec. All right, so my onions have been sauteing for a few minutes and they're brown. So now I'm gonna add in my 2 shredded zucchinis. All right. So I'm gonna give that a stir, let those start cooking down. It looks like a lot of zucchini right now, but it will definitely cook down. And next at this time we're gonna add our spices. So I know the recipe just calls for a pinch of cayenne pepper and some salt and pepper, but I'm gonna make this recipe my own a little bit because I like using a lot of spices in my cooking and I'm gonna be eating this. But feel free to use what you like, what you have. You don't have to do exactly what I'm doing, but I'm gonna be adding in a pinch of cayenne pepper, just a little bit, and then a ½ teaspoon each of onion powder, garlic powder, cumin, smoked paprika, chili powder, dried cilantro, and salt and pepper. So that cumin and paprika and chili powder is gonna give you kind of that smoky, almost like taco flavor, which I really like in this quesadilla. So if you do have those things, it might be fun to add a little bit in. And I'm using the dried cilantro for my herb. You could use fresh if you wanted, or really any other dried herb you have. Throwing a little bit in could add a nice flavor. You could use dried oregano or dried basil, or what have you. So I'm going to throw these spices in, and we're going to let this cook, the zucchini cook, for a couple minutes just until it starts getting a little bit soft. All right. All right, so while my zucchini is cooking, I can do a little bit of prep work for the other parts of our quesadilla. So I'm gonna shred some cheese. This is a reduced fat sharp cheddar cheese. We tend to use block cheeses in Cooking Matters and shred them ourselves because a lot of time you're gonna be paying a little bit less if you do the shredding yourself. anytime a manufacturer has to do a little bit of work for you, you're gonna pay for that work. So that can be a nice way to cut down on some costs. Right. Beautiful. That's probably enough for one quesadilla. And also right now I am going to chop a little bit of my spinach. I like chopping the spinach before putting it in the quesadilla because it just gives you that smaller pieces, kind of like what we talked about with zucchini. It can make it a little bit easier to digest for the kids. So I know it looks like I have a really big pile of spinach here, but as we know, spinach is going to cook down a ton. So I'm just going to kind of get it into a pile here to make it easier to cut. And I'm going to do a super rough chop with my spinach. And I'm keeping my fingers tucked in, just really, roughly going through this with my knife. And actually having the spinach kind of packed together in a ball can make it easier to cut. So don't feel like you have to just cut one piece of spinach at a time. Beautiful. Nice. And spinach is super high in iron. So it's great to get a little bit of spinach in your dinner, right? Awesome. Let's check on that zucchini. That's looking good. It's just starting to get a little bit soft. Beautiful. Smells really good. So next I'm going to add in a can of corn. So I already rinsed and drained this, dried it a little bit so it's ready to go. So we're just going to add that in there. Getting another veggie in our meal. And next I'm also going to add in my spinach. And this is probably a couple cups. About 3 cups of spinach I'm putting in right now. All right, and I'm gonna mix this up and then cover it for a couple minutes just to let the spinach wilt, and then I'll do my last step. All right, so my veggies and spinach look great in there, and lastly I'm gonna add in a can of black beans. I'm using low sodium black beans. Really, you could use any type of black bean or any type of beans in this recipe, really. So I'm gonna add them into my pan, and then I'm gonna really just kind of lightly mash them a little bit to just kind of break them up and get a little bit of a smoother texture, especially if your kids don't like the texture of beans. You might even want to mash them a little bit more before you add them in. Or even use like refried beans. If your kids really don't like the texture, it could be a good way to hide them in there. Something that I wanted to mention, especially with this dish and the zucchini and the spinach, this is something that's really easy to substitute other vegetables in, right? So if you don't have zucchini, but maybe you have a bunch of sweet potatoes or carrots, you could shred those in. I even sometimes add some bell peppers to this because I always have some peppers lying around in the fridge. So feel free to switch it up and, kind of make it your own with whatever you have in your fridge. All right, so this is looking really good. It's also smelling really good. I swear to God, with all those spices, it smells like I'm making tacos. So that looks good. I'm gonna call this a day, and I'm gonna switch to a little bit of a smaller pan. One sec. All right. If you want to limit the number of pans you use, you could also just clean out the pan that you had the veggies in. To make things easier on myself, I'm going to just use a different pan. All right, so to assemble our quesadillas, I am going to take 1 whole wheat tortilla. And if you know us at Cooking Matters, we're always going to encourage you to use a whole wheat product whenever you can. I really like these ones from Hannaford. All right, so I'm going to put my tortilla on the stove, and I put a tiny bit of oil at the bottom. All right, and on half of the tortilla, I'm just gonna put a little bit of cheese at the bottom. Beautiful. And then I'm gonna put in a little bit of my veggie mixture. And if you're like me, you tend to overfill your quesadillas. So I try not to fit too much that it's too stuffed and stuff's falling out. But definitely fill it enough so it's hearty. I think the beans in here make this super duper hearty. All right, and then I'm gonna top it off with a little bit more cheese. And then I'm just gonna fold the tortilla in half, and I'm gonna saute it on medium heat for about 4 minutes on each side, just until it starts getting a little bit brown and the cheese is melting on the inside. So I'll let that cook and I'll come back and show you the finished product. All right, so my quesadilla is done. I just wanted to show you all the final product. So I'm serving it with a little bit of salsa on the side and Greek yogurt instead of sour cream. I promise you, if you're mixing it with salsa, you won't be able to tell the difference. So I would recommend trying sour cream. And that's it. I hope you guys really enjoy this, especially with those added spices. It's super duper yummy. So I'm excited to see what you think. And I will say the veggie mixture that I made probably made enough for like 10 quesadillas. It definitely makes a lot at once, which can be really nice later in the week, just heating up a tortilla and throwing together a quesadilla super quick. So I hope you guys enjoy, and we'll see you next time.